Okay. Let me know if you guys can hear me. And just let me know if any of you guys are watching this live or watching the recording of this. Let me know if you want to come in and join. I am going to be I'm going to be doing a live reading of the first Goosebumps book. And I honestly thought it was live when I started this, but it turns out it wasn't. So you got to miss all that kind of nervousness chatter. So yeah, this is going to be a reading of the Welcome to Dead House. And just again, let me know if you guys can hear me clearly, because I want to make sure it's like I have good audio. And if anyone else is watching, let me know and I'll invite them in. But I hardly doubt anyone is up. Okay. We're going to start. This is the first Goosebumps book. Welcome to Dead House. And I'm going to try to read this whole book before I go to sleep. But I'm trying to fight exhaustion, so I'm doing it for you guys. Chapter 1. Josh and I hated our new house. Sure, it was big. It looked like a mansion. It looked like a mansion compared to our old house. It was a tall red brick. It was a tall red brick house with a sloping black roof and rows of windows framed by black shutters. It's so dark. It's so dark, I thought, studying it from the street. The whole house was covered in darkness, as if it were hiding in the shadows of the gnarled old trees that bent over it. It was the middle of July. The dead brown leaves blanketed the front yard. Our sneakers crunched our sneakers crunched over them as we trudged. Our sneakers crunched over them as we trudged up to the gravel driveway. Tall weeds poked up everywhere. And tall weeds poked up everywhere through the dead leaves. Thick clumps of weeds had completely overgrown an old flower bed beside the front porch. This house is creepy, I thought happily. Josh must have been thinking the same thing. Looking up at the old house, we both groaned loudly. Mr. Dawes, the friendly young man from the local real estate office, had stopped near the front walk and turned around. Everything okay? Everything okay? Everything, everything okay? He asked, staring first at Josh, then at me, with his twinkling blue eyes. Josh and Amanda, Josh and Amanda aren't exact. Josh and Amanda aren't happy about moving. Dad explained, tucking his shirt tail in. Dad is a little overweight. Dad is a little overweight, and his shirts are always seem to be coming untight. It's hard for kids, my mother added. It's hard for kids, my mother added. It's hard for kids, my mother added, smiling at Mr. Dawes her hand shoved into her jeans pockets, as she continued up the front door. Leaving all their friends behind, leaving all their friends behind, leaving all of their friends behind, moving to a strange new place. Strange is right, strange is right, strange is right, Josh said, shaking his head. This house is gross. This house is gross. Mr. Dawes chuckled. It's an old house. It's an old house, that's for sure, he said, patting Josh on the shoulder. It just needs some work. It just needs some work, Josh, Dad said, smiling at Mr. Dawes. No one's lived in it. Nobody has lived in it for a while. Nobody has lived in it for a while. So it'll take some fixing. So it'll take some fixing up. Look how big it is. It's an old house. It's an old house. That's for sure. It's an old house. That's for sure, he said, patting Josh on the shoulder. It just needs some work, Josh. It just needs some work, Josh. It just needs some work, Josh. It just needs some work, Josh, Dad said, smiling at Mr. Dawes. Nobody has lived in it for a while. So it'll take some fixing up. Look how big it is, Mom added, smoothing back her. Mom said smoothing back her. Mom said smoothing back her straight black. Mom said smoothing back her straight black hair and smiling at Josh. We'll have room for a den. We'll have room for a den. Maybe a rec. Look how big it is, Mom added, smoothing back her straight black hair and smiling at Josh. Will there room for a den? We'll have room for a den and maybe a rec room. We'll have room for a den, maybe a rec room, maybe a rec room too. You would like that, wouldn't you? Would like that, wouldn't you, Amanda? You would like that, wouldn't you, Amanda? Wouldn't you, Amanda? I shrugged. I shrugged. A cold breeze made me shiver. A cold breeze made me shiver. It was actually a beautiful. A cold breeze made me shiver. It was actually a beautiful. It was actually a beautiful hot summer day. But the closer we got to the house, sorry, you would like that, wouldn't you, Amanda? I shrugged. A cold breeze made me shiver. It was actually a beautiful hot summer day. But the closer we got to the house, but the closer we got to this house, but the closer we got to the house, the colder I felt. The colder I felt. I guess it was because of it. I guess it was because of the tall old trees. But the closer we got to the house, the colder I felt. I guess it was because of the cold. I guess it was because of the. I guess it was because of the tall of all the tall old trees. I was wearing a white. I was wearing white tennis. Oh, a cold breeze made me shiver. It was actually a beautiful hot summer day. But the closer we got to the house, the colder I felt. I guess it was because of the tall. I guess it was because of the tall. I guess it was because of all the tall old. I guess it was because of all the tall old trees. I was wearing white tennis shorts and a sleeveless blue T-shirt. It had been hot in the car. It had been hot in the car, but now I was freezing. It had been hot in the car, but now I was freezing. But it'll be warmer. But it will be warmer in the house. I thought. But it'll be warmer in the house. I thought. How old are? Uh, how old are they? How old are they? Mr. Dawes asked Mom, stepping onto the front porch. Amanda's 12, Mom answered, and Josh turned 11. And Josh turned 11 last month. Amanda's 12, and Josh turned 11. Amanda's 12, and Josh turned 11. Josh turned 11 last month. They look so much alike. They look so much alike, Mr. Dawes told Mom. I couldn't decide if that was a compliment or not. I believe it was true. I believe it's true. Josh and I are both tall and thin. Josh and I are both tall and thin and have curly brown hair like Dad's, and dark brown eyes. Everyone says we have serious faces. I really want to go home, Josh said, his voice cracking. I hate this place. I hate this place. I really want to go home, Josh said, his voice cracking. I hate this place. My brother is the most impatient kid in the world. Yeah. My brother is the most. My brother is the most. My brother is the most. My brother is the most impatient kid in the world. And when he makes up his mind about something, that's it. He's a little spoiled. He's a little spoiled. At least he's a little spoiled. At least I think so. At least I think so. When he makes up his mind about something, that's it. He's a little spoiled. He's a little spoiled. At least I think so. Whenever he makes a big fuss about whenever he makes a big fuss about something, he usually my brother is the most impatient kid in the world. And when he makes up his mind about something, that's it. He's a little spoiled, at least I think so. At least I think so. So whenever he makes a big fuss about something, he usually gets his way. We may look alike, but we're really not that simple. We're really not. We may look alike, but we're really not that similar. I'm a lot more patient than Josh is. A lot more sensible. Probably because I'm older. Probably because I'm older. Probably because I'm older, and because I'm a girl. Because I'm a girl. Josh had hold of Dad's hand, and Josh had hold of Dad's hand and was trying to pull him back. Was trying to pull him back to the car. Let's go. Come on. Let's go. Come on. Let's go. Come on. Let's go. Let's go. Come on. Come on, Dad. Let's go. I knew this was a. Hang on, guys.
Hello, I'm R.L. Stein. Our classic Goosebumps story is called Welcome to Dead House. Amanda and Josh think the old house they've just moved into is weird, spooky, possibly haunted.
Can you guys hear that?
And the town of Dark Falls is pretty strange too. But their parents don't believe them. You'll get used to it, they say. Go out and make some new friends. So Amanda and Josh do. But these creepy new friends are not exactly what Mom and Dad had in mind, because they want to be friends forever. Listener beware, you're in for a scare.
Scholastic Audio presents Welcome to Dead House, a Goosebumps classic story by R.L. Stein. Read by Tara Sands. Chapter 1. Josh and I hated our new house. Sure, it was big. It looked like a mansion compared to our old house. It was a tall red brick house with a sloping black roof and rows of windows framed by black shutters. It's so dark, I thought, studying it from the street. The whole house was covered in darkness, as if it were hiding in the shadows of the gnarled old trees that bent over it. It was the middle of July, but dead brown leaves blanketed the front yard. Our sneakers crunched over them as we trudged up the gravel driveway. Tall weeds poked up everywhere through the dead leaves. Thick clumps of weeds had completely overgrown an old flower bed beside the front porch. This house is creepy, I thought unhappily. Josh must have been thinking the same thing. Looking up at the old house, we both groaned loudly. Mr. Dawes, the friendly young man from the local real estate office, stopped near the front walk and turned around. "Everything okay?" he asked, staring first at Josh, then at me, with his crinkly blue eyes. "Josh and Amanda aren't happy about moving," Dad explained, tucking his shirt tail in. Dad is a little overweight, and his shirts always seem to be coming untucked. "It's hard for kids," my mother added, smiling at Mr. Dawes, her hands shoved into her jeans pockets as she continued up to the front door. You know, leaving all of their friends behind, moving to a strange new place. "Strange is right," Josh said, shaking his head. "This house is gross." Mr. Dawes chuckled. "It's an old house, that's for sure," he said, patting Josh on the shoulder. "It just needs some work, Josh," Dad said, smiling at Mr. Dawes. "No one has lived in it for a while, so it'll take some fixing up." "Look how big it is," Mom added, smoothing back her straight black hair and smiling at Josh. "We'll have room for a den and maybe a rec room, too. You'd like that, wouldn't you, Amanda?" I shrugged. A cold breeze made me shiver. It was actually a beautiful, hot summer day, but the closer we got to the house, the colder I felt. I guessed it was because of all the tall, old trees. I was wearing white tennis shorts and a sleeveless blue t-shirt. It had been hot in the car, but now I was freezing. Maybe it'll be warmer in the house, I thought. How old are they? Mr. Dawes asked Mom, stepping onto the front porch. Amanda is 12, Mom answered, and Josh turned 11 last month. They look so much alike, Mr. Dawes told Mom. I couldn't decide if that was a compliment or not. I guess it's true. Josh and I are both tall and thin and have curly brown hair like Dad's and dark brown eyes. Everyone says we have serious faces. I really want to go home, Josh said, his voice cracking. I hate this place. My brother is the most impatient kid in the world, and when he makes up his mind about something, that's it. He's a little spoiled. At least, I think so. Whenever he makes a big fuss about something, he usually gets his way. We may look alike, but we're really not that similar. I'm a lot more patient than Josh is. A lot more sensible. Probably because I'm older, and because I'm a girl. Josh had grabbed Dad's hand and was trying to pull him back to the car. Let's go! Come on, Dad! Let's go! I knew this was one time Josh wouldn't get his way. We were moving to this house. No doubt about it. After all, the house was absolutely free. A great uncle of Dad's, a man we didn't even know, had died and left the house to Dad in his will. I'll never forget the look on Dad's face when he got the letter from the lawyer. He let out a loud whoop and began dancing around the living room. Josh and I thought he'd flipped or something. My great-uncle Charles has left us a house in his will, Dad explained, reading and rereading the letter. It's in a town called Dark Falls. Huh? Josh and I cried. Where's Dark Falls? Dad shrugged. I don't remember your Uncle Charles, Mom said, moving behind Dad to read the letter over his shoulder. Neither do I, admitted Dad. But he must have been a great guy. Wow, this sounds like an incredible house. He grabbed Mom's hands and began dancing happily with her across the living room. Dad sure was excited. He'd been looking for an excuse to quit his boring office job and devote all of his time to his writing career. This house, absolutely free, would be just the excuse he needed. And now, a week later, here we were in Dark Falls, a 4-hour drive from our home, seeing our new house for the first time. We hadn't even gone inside, and Josh was trying to drag Dad back to the car. Josh, stop pulling me, Dad snapped impatiently, struggling to tug his hand out of Josh's grasp. Dad glanced helplessly at Mr. Dawes. I could see that he was embarrassed by how Josh was carrying on. I decided maybe I could help. Let go, Josh, I said quietly, grabbing him by the shoulder. We promised we'd give Dark Falls a chance, remember? I already gave it a chance, Josh whined, not letting...
Josh, stop pulling me, Dad snapped impatiently, trying to tug his hand out of Josh's grasp. Dad glanced helplessly at Mr. Dawes. I could see that he was embarrassed by how Josh was carrying on. I decided maybe I could help. Let go, Josh, I said quietly, grabbing Josh by the shoulder. We promised to give Dark Falls a chance, remember? We promised to give Dark Falls a chance, remember? I already gave it a chance, Josh whined, not letting go of Dad's hand. This house is old and ugly. This house is old and ugly, and I hate it. You haven't even gone inside, Dad said angrily. Yes, let's go in, Mr. Dawes urged, staring at Josh. I'm staying outside, Josh insisted. I'm sta- I'm staying outside, Josh insisted. He could be really stubborn sometimes. I felt just as unhappy as Josh looking I felt just as unhappy as Josh looking at this dark old house. But I never carry on the way Josh was. Josh, don't you want to pick out your own don't you want to pick out your own room? Josh, don't you want to pick out your own room? Mom asked. No, Josh Josh muttered. He and I both glanced up to the second floor. He and I both glanced up. He and I both glanced up to the sec. He and I both glanced up to the second floor. He and I both glanced up to the second floor. There were two large bay windows. There were two large bay windows side by side. There were two large bay windows side by side up there. They looked like they looked like two dark eyes. They looked like two dark eyes staring back at us. How long have you lived in your present home? Mr. Dawes asked Dad. Dad had to think for a second. About 14 years, he answered. The kids have lived there their whole lives. Moving is always hard, Mr. Dawes said sympathetically, turning his gaze to me. You know Amanda. I moved here to Dark Falls just a few months ago. I didn't like it much either. I didn't like it much either at first. I didn't like it much either at first. But now I wouldn't live anywhere. But now I wouldn't live anywhere else. But now I wouldn't live anywhere else. He winked at me. He had a cute dimple in his chin when he smiled. Let's go inside. It's really quite nice. You'll be quite surprised. You'll be quite surprised. All of us followed Mr. Dawes, except for Josh. Are there any other kids on this block? Are there any kids are there any other are there other kids on are there other kids on this block? Josh demanded. He made it sound like more of a challenge. Are there other kids in this block? Josh demanded. He made it sound like more of a he made it sound like more of a challenge. He made it sound like more of a challenge than a question. Mr. Dawes nodded. The school is just the school is just 2 blocks the school is just 2 blocks away. The school is just 2 blocks away, he said, pointing up the street. See? Mom quickly cut in. A short walk to school. See? Mom quickly cut in. A short walk to school. No more long bus rides everyone. See? A short walk to school. A short walk to school. No more long bus ride. No more long bus rides every morning. I liked the bus. I liked the bus, Josh insisted. I never liked the bus. His mind was made up. His mind was made up. He wasn't gonna give my parents a break. He wasn't gonna give my parents a break. Even though we both he wasn't gonna give my parents a break. Even though we both promised to be open minded about this move.
Letting go of Dad's hand. This house is old and ugly and I hate it. barking and howling and making a fuss. Let's go inside. It's really quite nice. You'll be surprised. All of us followed Mr. Dawes, except Josh. Are there other kids on this block? Josh demanded. He made it sound more like a challenge than a question. Mr. Dawes nodded. The school's just 2 blocks away, he said, pointing up the street. See, Mom quickly cut in. A short walk to school. No more long bus rides every morning. I liked the bus, Josh insisted. His mind was made up. He wasn't going to give my parents a break, even though we'd both promised to be open-minded about this move. I don't know what Josh thought he had to gain by being such a pain. I mean, Dad already had plenty to worry about. For one thing, he hadn't been able to sell our old house yet. I didn't like the idea of moving, but I knew that inheriting this big house was a great opportunity for us. We were so cramped in our little house. And once Dad managed to sell the old place, we wouldn't have to worry at all about money anymore. Josh should at least give it a chance. That's what I thought. Suddenly, from our car at the foot of the driveway, we heard Petey barking and howling and making a fuss. Petey is our dog, a white curly-haired terrier, cute as a button, and usually well-behaved. He never minded being left in the car. But now he was yowling and yapping at full volume and scratching at the car window, desperate to get out. Petey, quiet! Quiet! I shouted. Petey usually listened to me. But not this time. I'm going to let him out, Josh declared, and took off down the driveway toward the car. No, wait, Dad called. But I don't think Josh could hear him over Petey's wails. Might as well let the dog explore, Mr. Dawes said. It's going to be his house, too. A few seconds later, Petey came charging across the lawn, kicking up brown leaves, yipping excitedly as he ran up to us. He jumped on all of us as if he hadn't seen us in weeks, and then, to our surprise, he started growling menacingly and barking at Mr. Dawes. Petey, stop, Mom yelled. He's never done this, Dad said apologetically. Really, he's usually very friendly. He probably smells something on me. Another dog, maybe, Mr. Dawes said, loosening his striped tie, looking warily at our growling dog. Finally, Josh grabbed Petey around the middle and lifted him away from Mr. Dawes. Stop it, Petey, Josh scolded, holding the dog up close to his face so that they were nose to nose. Mr. Dawes is our friend. Petey whimpered and licked Josh's face. After a short while, Josh set him back down on the ground. Petey looked up at Mr. Dawes, then at me, then decided to go sniffing around the yard.
All right, guys. I think I'm going to call it here. I know it wasn't a long thing, and it was just a weird stream, like alternating between me reading this book and like listening to audio, but I don't know. Like, I'm still trying to get over the nervousness of like filming videos or getting on camera. But if you want to hear the rest of the story, you could just search Welcome to Dead House audiobook on YouTube and you can find it. So, yeah, I'm going to end the stream here. And if you guys watch the recording, I appreciate it, even though it wasn't like I didn't read the whole book, but I appreciate you watching. So, yeah. Thank you and have a good night.